Welcome to ADVI Connect. I'm Rita Excell, the Executive Director of the Australia and New Zealand Driverless Vehicle Initiative, ADVI. I'm excited to bring to you our ADVI Connect series, where we interview leaders in automation from around the world. ADVI is a collaboration of organisations that have a shared vision to safely accelerate the introduction of driverless technologies into Australia and New Zealand. ADVI is also the peak body for driverless vehicles and provides expert advice to industry and governments alike. Our key pillars of ADVI are reach, readiness, redesign and regulation. And ADVI Connect is part of our reach pillar, where we want to reach out to share with you what is happening in the industry and to connect you with the most up-to-date information and technologies that we can. Today I'm pleased to introduce you to our first guest, Kendra Gallup from AutonomouStuff. AutonomouStuff is part of the Hexagon group of companies. We'll find out more about AutonomouStuff from Kendra, but here is some background to Kendra herself. She is a senior sales manager at AutonomouStuff, responsible for all sales in North and South America and Australia and New Zealand. Welcome, Kendra, to ADVI Connect. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yes. So let's start, Kendra, by maybe giving us a bit of background to the company, AutonomouStuff, and Hexagon.
Sure. So my background is in mechanical engineering. Prior to working in sales, I worked as a mechanical engineer designing lasers and packaging for lasers. I then moved more into the product management side and decided I enjoyed the engagement with people and rather than being stuck behind a computer all day. So I transitioned then more to a sales and business development roles. Prior to AutonomouStuff, I was working at a company that sold inertial sensors. Inertial sensors are one component that are often used in autonomous applications. So that's how I came across AutonomouStuff. And prior to joining them, they were actually one of my largest customers for a number of years. So although I've only been with AutonomouStuff for about 2.5 years, I've known the team for many years before that. So when I was given the opportunity to come work at AutonomouStuff, it was very exciting. I know all of the work that they've been doing since 2010 when they were founded is really cutting edge and exciting in the world of autonomy. So yeah, joining AutonomouStuff, I mean, they were founded in 2010 out of a garage by Bobby Hambrick, who is our founder and still CEO. Basically, he saw a big gap in the marketplace. He saw that a lot of these smaller companies working on autonomous applications couldn't get sensors. They couldn't get any of the tools they needed to go ahead with their research and development. So he formed some partnerships with different sensor manufacturers and started supplying sensors to the industry. From there, a lot of customers were buying sensors, and then they kind of said, oh, great, now we have the sensors, what do we do with them? So we started integrating the sensors onto vehicles for our customers. And then customers would say, oh, so now we have sensors on a vehicle, now what do we do with them? So we came up with kind of a compute solution where we would take all of the data from the sensors into a central computer. We would write some ROS drivers and some other software so that you could visualize all your sensor data. So now you had a car with kind of a full perception suite on it. You were able to sense your entire environment. And so our customers were saying, oh, great. Okay, so now we need to be able to drive these vehicles autonomously. So in about 2016, AutonomouStuff launched our first, what we call our research and development platform. And it was a vehicle with by-wire control, as well as the ability to sense your environment and perceive your entire environment. Since then, we've kind of moved on and continued adding things to the portfolio, adding software, adding some data intelligence, some ability to store your data, some simulation software. And then in 2018, AutonomouStuff was acquired by Hexagon. So Hexagon's a company of more than 21,000 employees worldwide. They have an annual revenue around $4 billion. And so as part of Hexagon, that allowed us to open up our offerings and come up with something that we call our SAM portfolio, and that stands for Smart Autonomous Mobility. And we're able to kind of utilize all of the services across the different divisions within Hexagon to offer even more to our customers.
So what are some of the major projects that you're working on, and particularly the ones that have specific relevance to Australia and New Zealand?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, that's one of the exciting things. I'm the senior sales manager responsible for the business development in the Americas as well as in Australia. And since I started 2.5 years ago, I've definitely seen things continuing to grow in Australia. When I first started, we started a project with Coda Wireless. And so basically what Coda does is they have a vehicle to vehicle or vehicle to infrastructure technology that allows the vehicles to communicate to each other. And they wanted to demonstrate that technology. But they didn't want to design a vehicle or understand how to do by-wire control or how to, it would take them over a year to develop that kind of platform when really they just wanted to highlight their technology and be able to demonstrate their core competencies. So what we did with Coda is we actually supplied them with 2 vehicles, both that had by-wire control, and they took these 2 vehicles and integrated their Coda Wireless technology. So the vehicles could actually talk to each other. They could basically see around corners and see what was in front of them, even if they were behind a large truck, because they could communicate with the infrastructure. And so they took these 2 vehicles and they placed them at an intersection, and they had one of the vehicles being driven manually and the other being driven autonomously. And as they approached the intersection, the autonomous vehicle was instructed to basically go through a red light, in which case it would have collided with the person-driven vehicle. But because the person-driven vehicle could see around the corner, could see around the blind corner, and sense that the other vehicle was going through the red light, it stopped. It was able to stop, and it avoided this collision. So they were able to really demonstrate that technology and show the capabilities with our help of giving them kind of the hardware to start with. That was a pretty exciting, I'd say that was our first real vehicle deployment in Australia. Since then, and with that vehicle, we actually built the vehicles in our headquarters in Morton, and then we had them go over by boat to Coda in Australia. Since then, we've actually grown our team quite a bit, and we have what we call our traveling integration team. And so rather than having to ship vehicles across continents, we're able to travel to our customers. So we have sites in China as well as in Canada, in the US, kind of all over the world, in Germany, where we can do this integration. And when we don't have a specific site, we can go to our customers and build it at their location. So we've since done that in Australia as well. And we even came out with our first right-hand drive vehicles for some customers in Australia. So there's now also a couple Lexus RX 450h running around Australia autonomously, which are both right-hand drive vehicles. And then more recently, we're working with a mining company or a mining customer on kind of a light off-road vehicle. So it's a Ford Ranger, and this one is actually for a specific application. So it's being used in what we call a closed course environment, so that it doesn't have to worry about interactions with people, or it doesn't have to worry about blind left turns. It doesn't have to worry about rotaries. It's very specific application. And so in this case, we're actually able to add redundant braking and take out the safety driver. So this particular vehicle is running truly autonomously and going kind of between areas on a mine site, delivering equipment and things like that. So those are kind of 2 exciting programs that are current in Australia. We also, I see a lot of universities right now applying for grants. So hopefully some of these grants will come through in the next year, and universities across the country will be able to have their own autonomous vehicles to further the research.
Yes, and the project that you referred to in Australia around the vehicle and obstacle avoidance, we actually had that demonstrated at our conference in 2018, and the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia took part in that trial as well. So we're very familiar with that one and that technology. So it's a very competitive industry that we find ourselves. So in your opinion, where do you think that the US is leading in the sector, and where do you think that Australia and New Zealand have got an advantage?
Yeah, sure. So one of the programs that we're working on at AutonomouStuff is what we call our Open Autonomy Pilot. And that we already have it running in downtown Peoria, which is kind of a mid-sized city in the US. It's a Midwestern kind of mid-sized city. And we actually have a vehicle running around autonomously collecting data. It's able to navigate stoplights, rotaries, intersections. It's able to do right and left-hand turns. And it's using all open source software. So all AutoWare software is what this vehicle's running on. We're even expanding that pilot into other software stacks, so other open software stacks like Apollo. And we're doing a lot of that work now at our new facility in Ottawa. So Ottawa has a great test track, and there's also a lot of great people up there, a lot of great talent in engineering up there that have experience both with AutoWare, Apollo, as well as other software stacks. So we're expanding this pilot to run up there as well, and expanding it to have other software stacks available, other open source software stacks available. So I see a lot of that work happening in North America. We see it with universities using this open source software. What I see as a advantage in Australia, and kind of where you have a leg up on the game, is in some of this what we call off-road autonomy. So some of these applications that are more specific, either more specific to mining or more specific to agriculture, or maybe industrial kind of commercial applications. The mining industry has been using autonomous haul trucks for 20 or 30 years. So there's definitely a big advantage in mining in terms of autonomy. And they're just kind of now moving into bringing some of the technology in-house, so that instead of just having the haul trucks and these big trucks being autonomous, they can actually have the whole mine site autonomous. But I think in Australia, there's a lot of mining, a lot of agriculture, a lot of open space, and people really do have experience using the technology already in these kind of applications. So they understand some of the limitations, they understand what needs to be taken into consideration. And so we're really doing a big push right now into some of this off-road, what we're calling off-road autonomy, and some of these applications where you may not need to think about every situation, but if you have, one application that needs to be done over and over and over again, and you can make it autonomous, that's great. Or if you can make it safer, these haul trucks are huge, and if they're driving autonomously next to a small pickup truck, often the pickup truck can't be seen. So if you have both of them autonomous and able to talk together, that really helps with safety in all situations.
Yes, and in fact, I think Australia has got the largest number of autonomous vehicles operating in a commercial environment in our mining sector. So, we do have some competitive advantage and experience in that. So, thanks for your time. This is our last question. I just wanted to ask you where you think this technology is likely to come to the market first, in what sector, and why do you think that's the case?
So I think that comes back again to that off-road autonomy, or these applications where they're specific, application specific. So things like in the area of mining and agriculture, and also in the long haul freight technologies. I think things like that will come along quicker than passenger vehicles. I'd say the one exception is kind of the passenger vehicle in a closed community. So whether it be a large scale old age community where people really are having difficulty getting around, this gives them another avenue, another way to get around. Those are coming along quickly. Maybe on university campuses where you can control the environment a bit better. I'd say all of these are kind of the ones that are coming along fastest, and the ones that will be going into production quickest. We have what we call our smart autonomous mobility portfolio that I think I mentioned. and it is what we were able to bring together within the different divisions of Hexagon together with AutonomouStuff. Novotel is part of our autonomy and positioning division, but then we also have a mining division and a number of other divisions within Hexagon, and we bring them all together in this smart autonomous mobility portfolio. And there's basically a couple initiatives in it. The first one is enable. So we enable the customers to have these kind of research and development vehicles so that they can test their technology. And then the second one is accelerate. So we also have a lot of ways to collect data, a lot of ways to see your environment, a lot of simulation platforms. And so you can go ahead and kind of accelerate what you're working on with the hardware in like a simulation environment, a simulated environment. And then the last one is deploy. And that's really around what we're talking about here. What will be first to market? What will be viable commercially? And so those are the kind of things that we can actually help customers with now, is actually getting into these kind of established and emerging markets and really give not just a development platform, but a solution that can be brought to market.
Yes, there seems to be a growing consensus around that, actually, from a lot of experts that we've spoken to. So thank you very much for your time, Kendra. Thanks. We look forward to catching up with you when you're back in Australia.
Sure, you can contact us. We have a number of social media outlets. You can contact us on LinkedIn, Facebook, directly through our website at AutonomouStuff.com. There's a contact us button at the bottom. You can also contact me directly. It's Kendra.Gallup, Gallup, at hexagon.com, or our sales email address is sales.as.ap@hexagon.com. And we'd love to hear from everyone.
So thank you very much for joining me on our ADVI Connect series with Kendra Gallup from AutonomouStuff. If you want to get in contact with Kendra, she's provided her contact details, or otherwise you can go to the ADVI website. I look forward to catching up with you again. Goodbye.